Good afternoon. I am Suman Saurav Mohanty, All India Rank 9, currently working as Indian Revenue Service Officer in Customs and Central Excise. Today I am here to discuss my GS strategy, my way forward, how I have come to this place, and enlighten students about the right approach to UPSC General Studies. I'll just go with my background. I am a mechanical engineer from KIT University. After that, I worked in Reliance Energy for some time. Then I worked with State Government of Odisha as an Administrative Services Officer, Deputy Collector rank. Then in 2015, I got selected for UPSC, rank 413. I got IRS Customs and Central Excise. Then this year, while training 2016, I have got UPSC rank 9 and I will be selected in IAS. Acha. Right now, before I start, I will tell my marks in 2015. Total marks in 2015 were around 885. In 2016, I scored around 1085 with 480 marks only in general studies. I think this was my defining factor of my preparation this year, because 480 was almost a 100-150 marks jump. So I'll right now develop my strategy as to how I could score so high marks in general studies. There are basically few questions which are very common to all UPSC aspirants. First is, which are the sources we read? Second is, answer writing paragraph or point format. Third is, time, word limit in general studies. Fourth is, structure of an answer. Final is, test series, how to approach. Another point which I would like to make is, about general studies, another question is subheadings. I will go one by one into each aspect of the preparation. First is General Studies Paper 1. This is a very interesting paper. This year I have scored 131 marks in General Studies Paper 1, which is a huge mark. It is basically static in content. The content is mostly static with some dynamic. It is 80% static with 20% dynamism. This year UPSC has asked very unconventional questions such as African world leaders, Indus Water Treaty, which is normally a portion of paper 2 in paper 1. He has asked about urban floods, smart city project, etc. So for static content, and this is composed of different portions such as history, culture, geography, world history, post-independence India, Indian society. Sources I will be telling. For history, I referred to Bankim Chandra, NCERT, Shankar Bandyopadhyay. This was one of my better things I did in history because it gave me a lot of conceptual clarity. Shankar Bandyopadhyay. This was the difference between 2015 and 2016 attempt, reading this book. Then Grover. Grover book is a very good book for modern Indian history, and supplemented it with GS core notes and handbook. For culture, I followed NCERT again, CCRT website, then GS score, notes, handbook, which is more than sufficient. And yes, Nitin Singhania sir's notes. For geography, it was purely, I did not have the time, so it was current affairs based, and actually they are asking very much dynamic and current affairs based questions in geography instead of static questions. Current affairs based from GS course handbook and NCERT, Savindra Singh. For world history, again it was Norman Lowe, plus some part of NCERT world history, GS core handbook. For post independence, I did not have any time, so only GS core handbook I followed. Indian society, it was NCERT, Ram Ahuja and IGNOU material on society. Plus, for current affairs portion of these aspects, I followed GS core, current affairs, IAS Baba, insights and Hindu. This is the sources. The first part I have covered. These are the sources I studied. Second question, people ask paragraph or point wise. I only focused on writing the answers point wise, because point wise while you write, you actually think while you are doing a paragraph. What the problem I feel is, while you are writing in a paragraph, your intent of writing the answer sometimes gets dislocated. But when you are writing in point, you remember I have written this point, I will not repeat this. So point wise answer writing is much better. Structure of the answer, I always had a simple structure. Introduction, I will write 3 lines, then directly come to the topic or the question asked in the answer. Then I would go for solution, because if it is a problem on urban floods, I will describe what are the causes of urban floods, I will tell what are the solutions for urban floods. Then finally I would use some facts and figures in this. For example, this percentage of area in India is covered by urban floods, or this amount of life and loss of property, suppose $2 billion as estimated by say World Bank has been estimated to be destroyed due to urban floods. Facts and figures in the question, in the answer. Solution, what are the solution to urban floods? For example, there needs to be more disaster preparedness, more vulnerability assessment, etc. After that, which is the way forward? Because UPSC is asking you as an administrator, you have to tell which is the best way forward. Use of schemes or use of disaster management techniques, etc. This is the way forward. This was my standard structure for every question. I used to go for introduction, question, then I used to go for the what is urban floods, for example, then answer with facts and figures, then solutions, then way forward. What is the final way forward which I propose? This goes about structure. Paragraph point wise, I always used to write in point wise. This is a very important question which students have doubt, that time or word limit. Be very specific. Even if you write more than the word limit, if you don't have time, you are actually compromising on other answers. So there are approximately 20 questions, 9 minutes each, 180 minutes. Do not write beyond 9 minutes. Irrespective of what is the words you have written, do not go beyond 9 minutes, because then you would be compromising on other answers which you can do better. Test series, very important. GS core I joined for test series, and that was one of the biggest advantages which I had over previous year. For example, previous year I joined another test series where the questions were a bit vague, and they were not at all UPSC type questions. UPSC asks very simple questions, very conceptual, which requires conceptual clarity. But normally test series, they give you very high-fi, very tough questions which normally would almost go over your head. So one of my friends suggested that you go through GS core since you have gone for other test series. GS core questions are mostly linked to UPSC style of asking questions. Many questions from GS1, urban floods, Vijayanagar kingdom, cultural globalization, how it's affect culture, low participation of women workforce in the industry. Almost 8 to 9 questions from GS score directly came in UPSC this year. So that is why advantages of a test series is you get some idea about questions which are likely to come in the coming year. Second is the discussion classes which were held at GS Core, which is also available in an online medium. The discussion classes are very important because then you realize, normally you feel that I have written this and I will get good marks for this. But again, the teacher, suppose Manoj sir or Piyush sir or whoever does the discussion class, he will tell you what is the right approach because they are experienced people. And when you attend the discussion classes and you incorporate that in your next test series, I had 2 test series in GS1. First one I think I secured around 80, 85. The second one I scored 120 to 120. And finally my score came to 131. So because of the advantages or the knowledge which I took from Manoj sir or Piyush sir and I incorporated that in my second answer, the final result came in my third answer. So please do, if you are attending the test series, do not miss on the discussion class. And there is a room for improvement. Finally, you must write in subheadings. For example, if there is a question on Buddhist motifs and stupa architecture are relevant in contemporary India. So you break down the question into subheadings. What is Buddhist architecture? What are stupa motifs? How they are relevant in contemporary India. You must write in subheading format. This helps you get more marks. Because it is ultimately you see it becomes easier for the examiner also to see that yes, the person has met the requirement of the question, this, let me give him 3 marks for this. So you must go for the subheading format. This is my strategy for GS1. Now I will go to GS2, which is one of the most dreaded papers around because continuously UPSC has been giving very low marks in this. Actually, UPSC has been giving and students are also not getting. GS2, my score in for GS paper 2, my score in 2015 was around 92, which was converted to 106. Considering this was a very tough paper this year, so 14 marks increase hua hai mera. Again, this is a mixture of static and dynamic content, but again, static content I would put it at 25%, whereas dynamic content is at 75%, where there are many schemes. This time they were asked very specifically about schemes. Sources I will tell you. First we will go to the sources. Basic is Lakshmikant. GS Core Handbook, which is freely available in the market. Also resources, which is updated in the website. Puri Sir's notes. Chokalingam Sir's notes for IR. The Hindu. Second ARC. This is very, very important for paper 2 because many questions from last year as well as this year's paper 2 questions were directly from ARC. Third is a regular analysis of government schemes, which is available in Business Standard, Live Mint, Hindu. So these are my sources: Lakshmikant, GS Core Handbook, and the resources GS Core, which updates continuously current affairs resources relating to GS paper 2 on its website. Puri Sir's notes, Chokalingam Sir's IR notes, The Hindu, second ARC, recent regular analysis of government schemes, which is available in Business Standard, Live Mint and Hindu. Second. Many people are confused because sometimes they ask you about very pertinent questions. For example, this year there was a question on Kashmir, which was in the news, current affairs. CAG, which was in the news, Delhi's constitutional status, which was in the news. This year, they have also introduced an element of public administration in GS2, which was very aptly given by Ashutosh sir, when he told us while writing GS2 that if you are conceptually clear in GS2, you will write PubAd very well. If you are conceptually clear in PubAd, you would write GS2 answers very well. So this year almost 3 questions from PubAd came, or which are typically PubAd questions came in GS2 paper. One is traditional bureaucratic structures. This got people confused. What is traditional bureaucratic structures? Second is government participation, government performance and people participation. Third question was about civil society organization and movement. Again, all these 3 questions were almost interlinked. Traditional bureaucratic structures was about colonial mentality of the bureaucracy, politicization of the bureaucracy, bureaucratization of polity, solutions. Government performance and people participation was again related to public ad. It was not related to public ad. It is how government performance gets better in policy formulation, implementation and review due to people participation. Third is CSO movement, what are the problems, solutions? Again, this was a direct question. For these, all the sources I referred, they can be, they are enough, as well as if you see GS2 material which was given by GS Core in the website, most these 3 questions were there directly from that. And CAG question was there from test series, Kashmir was there in the test series, Delhi status, constitutional status was there in the test series. So automatically if you are joining a good test series like GS Core or any other institute, you would be getting all these questions. For example, and then the answer writing. For example, CAG constitutional status, I very vividly remember Ashutosh sir had taken the discussion class and he told about international impact of CAGs across the world. So that I included in my answer and probably I got better marks. Structure of the answer, again you will have to this you cannot go in a very regular or rhythmic structure because IR etc. topics are very complex. You go to the point, what the question is asking. Then you meet to the point question, answer to the question. Finally, solution. What is the solution to CAG versus bureaucracy? The solution is bureaucracy has to accept the demands of CAG. CAG has to understand that bureaucracy always won't be at fault. It has to approach, it has to counsel bureaucracy to come forward with solutions or to give it cooperation. Third is again way forward. What is the best way? For example, people participation, I told that yes, people, civil society needs to be more in tune with government. There has to be an institutional mechanism so that civil society organizations and government work together for good governance. This is something which I wrote, and I gave an example also. District Mineral Foundation, which has been in news recently, it has civil society members as its board of directors. So this is an example of institutional mechanism. This is the way I wrote the answers and probably I got 106 marks. Yes, McBride Commission question was a bit unexpected, which I left, which almost everyone has done because McBride no one knew. Coelho case, I'll tell you another very interesting case. If they asked about Coelho case and its relevance to basic structure of constitution. I did not, many people what they did, they simply left this question. What I did, I did not know about Coelho case, so I did not write about it. But I wrote about basic structure of constitution, Keshwanand Bharati case, Minerva Mills case, what is the position of Supreme Court on basic structure, including recent NGAC judgment which affects the basic structure. So maybe in this question where people have gone 0, I must have got minimum 4 to 5 marks extra. So don't get panicked on seeing a question which looks very difficult. Rather try to break it. If they are asking about Coelho case and basic structure, remember Coelho case must have had something to do with basic structure. Do not focus on Coelho, rather focus on the basic structure aspect. IR, many people what they do not link it with current topics and they do not write multidimensional aspects. For For example, there is a question on Lucas policy. Relevance of Lucas policy in post-liberalization era. Lucas policy, what I wrote, first I described what was Act East. There was a question on our Eastern policy. So I described what is Act East policy, what is Lucas policy, what is the relevance of a Lucas policy in India in terms of strategic, economic, financial, political, security aspects. How does our relationship with our Southeast Asian neighbors lie? So when an examiner sees that you are writing in this paragraph, in this point-wise format, and you are actually covering almost all the aspects of the question, it will definitely give you good marks in IR. And diagrams I drew in, many people have this question diagrams. Diagrams only draw where it is relevant. Do not draw diagrams just for the sake of drawing it. It must have a relevance with the content. For example, Lucas policy, I just made a rough diagram of India, then I made about Indian Ocean, Malacca Strait, I told sea lanes of communication, oil comes through this route, this is our strategic interest, this is Andaman Nicobar Island, this is Indian Navy's maritime zone, this I drew. But unnecessarily for every question I did not have a diagram, because it is not necessary. If you are able to convey your answer better with the diagram, then do the diagram, otherwise do not. This is about paper 2, then I come to paper 3. Paper 3 people, usually UPSC is very liberal with marking, but again I'll go through the sources. This is very dynamic paper. Here the static content is almost negligible. Static content is hardly 5%, whereas 95% of the paper is dynamic in content. GS2 last year I had 93 marks, whereas this year it jumped to 122 marks. So there was almost a jump of 30 marks in this. Okay. So what are the portions in this? This is one of the most vast courses of GS in across all the 4 papers. First of all, we start with agriculture. Then briefly we go to food processing. Then we go to intellectual property. Then we go to disaster management. Then we go to internal security. Then we go to science and technology. Then we have another aspect is irrigation. So you see there are many subdivisions in this syllabus. We have to be very much sure about not missing on any part of the syllabus. We have to cover the syllabus in its entirety, because there are 20 questions which UPSC asks, at least one is there from each portion of the syllabus. You cannot do selective study. Sources which I followed for this is very, very important. Economic survey. People neglect this. Budget. GS Core handbook. Resources on website. TMH for science tech. TMH for science tech, internal security. Yojana Kurukshetra articles, very, very important on agriculture, on economic issues. Yojana Kurukshetra articles is very, very important for GS3. Please go through past 1 or 2 years of Yojana Kurukshetra article. They are available in PDF format. Whichever topics are there related to GS3, please go through that, because there are a lot of case studies available in Yojana and Kurukshetra, which you will not find anywhere else. Then again ARC for internal security. For science tech, then IAS Baba, insights on India. For current topics, The Hindu, for current topics related to GS3. These were my sources. Then again, questions were not so difficult, but they asked very strange worded questions this time. For example, there was a question on, I'll be telling there will be a question on there is a question on women empowerment, gender budgeting. Requirements and status of gender budgeting. This again I will give credit to our faculty at GS Core, where they are told that you must link PubAd with GS3 questions, GS2 questions. Gender budgeting is a portion in public administration which people usually neglect, but I had read on gender budgeting. So status, requirements as well as facts and figures I had in my mind. So these two I had in my mind. I first explained what is women empowerment. Then I explained gender budgeting history in brief. Then I explained the requirements and status. Then finally I went to solution. What is the way forward? Establishing more gender budgeting cells in ministries, specific cadre of Indian Economic Service officers or other specialists, gender budgeting. Third solution which I gave in gender budgeting was, if a ministry is unable to fulfill its commitments towards gender budgeting, then some portion of its budget may be cut as a penalty for next year. Another solution also I gave in gender budgeting was co-opting women society, women civil society in gender budgeting for ministries. Let civil society women decide what budget they need for them. So this way one of my answers, this was a very good answer which I wrote. Another very tricky question which came was, there I will tell you the logic of using subheadings. There is a question, what are smart cities? Examine their relevance for urban development in India. Will it increase rural-urban differences? Give arguments for smart villages in the light of Pura and Rural-Urban Mission. Smart villages, Pura, Rural-Urban Mission. Many people, well later I checked with answers etc. They had only written about smart city problem solutions, describe something of Pura and Rural-Urban Mission. But if you see this question, if you go in a subheading approach, you see there are almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 aspects of the question. If you are writing in subheading approach, you would definitely, the examiner would feel very glad that yes, you have addressed all portions of the question. So first I wrote what is a smart city, then how does it contribute to urban development, because cities are going to be engines of urban growth. Then I wrote what are how it will not increase rural-urban differences. Okay. Then I went in argument for smart villages. I said why smart villages are important. Smart villages, how will it lead to smart cities? Because India is an agrarian country, our rural economy is too high, there is only 33% of urbanization. So rural distress, rural income, rural spending, if it gets increased, actually the country's GDP grows forward. These are the arguments. Then I wrote what is Pura and what is Rural-Urban Mission. What is Pura? What are the problems with Pura? I wrote what is Rural-Urban Mission? What are the features? Then how smart villages will help in Pura, how Rururban and Pura mission will help in the creation of smart villages. Finally, I ended with Ishar Judge Alia committee report, which also stated that smart villages need to be developed in smart cities. So when you write these sort of an answer with subheadings, you are logically clear that you are not missing out on any part of the answer. The examiner also gets impressed that yes, he has covered the answer in its entirety and he will definitely grant you more marks. But if you are going only for smart city, doing something on Pura, Rururban mission, etc., thinking that this is a very long question, this creates a negative impression on the examiner. This is one part. Another question which the final question which I would like to discuss is, another question which came was, comment on the challenges for inclusive growth, which includes careless and useless manpower. In Indian context, suggest measures. Okay. So if you see again this question, if you do subheading wise, these are 4 subheadings. Comment on the challenges for inclusive growth. First you will have to say why inclusive growth is not happening in the country, what are the challenges. There are healthcare issues, there are employment issues, there are education issues, there is income issues. Okay, you are the challenges which is there for inclusive growth. Then you will have to describe what is careless and useless manpower. Our demographic dividend, which is not educated, not skilled, is careless and useless manpower. You will have to define this. Indian context, you will have to say that India has the largest population of unskilled people in the world. Indian context, this means this. And how other countries are performing on skilling level. Suppose Germany, it has 95% skilling level. Indian context. Finally, you will have to suggest measures. You will have to name some schemes of government which are doing well in skilling department. You will have to tell about migration of skilling people from one national skill qualification framework which allows you to complete your vocational education with your previously learned experience. You will have to tell about skill bank scheme. You will have to tell about examples such as in Raipur, where they have skill workshop on wheels, where skill workshop on wheels goes and trains people and come back. Then you will have to also tell about, for example, in this careless and useless manpower, you will have to tell about low women participation rate, female participation rate, which is due to non-skilling purpose. Then you suggest measures. This way if you write, obviously the examiner out of 12.5 he is going to give you 7 or 6 because he sees that you have met entire aspects of the question. So in GS3 they are asking very difficult questions, slightly twisted ones, not very difficult, slightly twisted ones, but if you are going in for this subheading approach, you will definitely be successful. Okay. Now we come to GS4. GS4, my performance last year was 94, which has come to 116, almost an increase of 18 marks, 22 marks. Okay. This is one of the most dreaded questions of GS4 of UPSC aspirants, that how to answer GS4 questions. This year again I'm just not able to thank enough our teachers at GS Core who told that you must interlink concepts of PubAd with ethics paper, because many portions of PubAd is related to ethics, many portions of ethics are related to PubAd. First I'll go to the sources, then I'll discuss some questions. Sources was pretty much the same. Subbarao, Lexicon, S.K. Mishra sir's ethics notes, which is awesome for, it is almost, you did not go through Lexicon Subbarao also. If you go through S.K. Mishra sir's ethics notes, it's more than enough for the syllabus. GS course handbook, resources on its website. Test series discussion which I had, they were very much important because I could know test series discussion at GS core which I used to have. I could relate with PubAd, then PubAd with ethics. That was very important. So these are the sources. You need not go through any of these sources yet get good marks in ethics, because ethics is just about common sense writing, how you are writing using your common sense and being an ethical person. And many people do this problem, and why they get lesser marks is because they do not write with their common sense. They try to pretend or write something like a scholar or a philosopher. No, you have to use your common sense approach across all questions, and definitely you would get success. Paragraph or point wise, I wrote all my answers in point wise format. Time limit, again I went for 9 minutes. This is a very important aspect in time limit for paper 4. There are 2 papers, A and B. I use in my last attempt and in this attempt also, I always used to focus on the case studies aspect first, because if you are hard pressed for time, you would omit some part of the case studies, and case studies carries more weightage. So I divided 1.5 hours and 1.5 hours for each A and B, but B portion I completed first and A I did second. One problem of this would be, because while you are writing A, your handwriting might go a little bad because time limit is less. So, but I would advise that go for portion B, then go for portion A, because case studies gets you more marks. Subheadings, again I used a lot. I'll discuss in some questions. Structure was same. I'll discuss some questions, then it will be more clearer to you. Paper 1 this year, again touched with the blessings of my sir. Many questions from public administration came. There are some very simple questions like governance, good governance, ethical governance. I did this sort of a diagram. Ethical governance, good governance, governance. So I explained what is governance first, art of governing people, providing institution mechanisms by which services are delivered to the people. Good governance is when it is done with legitimate rule of law, use of constitutional principles, keeping in mind the people's perspective rather than the politician's perspective. Ethical governance is these two are a subtext of ethical governance, because ethical governance has to be, these two has to be within ethical governance. So that is why ethics has to rule over good governance as well as governance. It cannot be a diagram like this. For a stable or a developing country or a developed country, it cannot be a diagram like this. These two cannot be. This has to come within this. And ultimately, if you see, man started with governance, then it went to good governance. Finally, everyone right now is talking about ethical governance through more use of anti-corruption measures, more better use of people participation in governance. So this is actually also tells about a natural progression. Another question which was very interesting, and from a PubAd point of view, again PubAd question was, law and ethics are considered to be two tools for controlling human existence, conduct, so as to make it conducive to civilized social existence. Discuss how they attain this objective that I discussed. This giving examples show how the two differ in their approaches. I simply gave the example of a lawyer. A lawyer who is attempting the case of a person who has committed a murder. He is ethically wrong but legally right. Another example I gave of a doctor who is allowing the termination of pregnancy of a abused victim beyond 20 weeks. He is ethically right but legally wrong. Because why is he ethically right? Because the victim cannot have that baby, she is unmarried. He is legally wrong because the law does not normally allow for this. So this is one case study which I gave with examples. Every answer in GS4 which I gave, I had an example for it. If I did not have a ready-made example, I somehow thought at that point of time in 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and I devised an example. Another very interesting question came about Max Weber, which was not at all related to public ad. It was a very simple question. Anybody who has read about Weber, the question asked, again I'll tell you, why we should go for a subheading approach to answer writing. How that gives us more mark. The question says, Max Weber said it is not wise to apply to public administration the sort of moral and ethical norms we apply to matters of personal conscience. What the question asks? Not wise to apply to public administration means bureaucrats. Not wise. This is the first statement. Moral and ethical norms we apply to matters of personal conscience, that is general public. This is the first part of the statement. He says it is not wise to apply to bureaucrats the moral and ethical norms which we apply to the general public. This is the first part of the question. Second part of the question is, it is important to realize that a state bureaucracy might possess its own independent bureaucratic morality. It again says, state bureaucracy has its own morality. By breaking this question down, many people on reading this question, it looks, people later on described that a question looks like the answer and the answer looks like the question. But if you break it simply, see what he is asking. Max Weber told it is not wise to apply to bureaucrats moral and ethical norms which is applicable to general public because they have their own morality. It's explained. So right now, critically analyze. Many people left this question this time. They thought that we do not know about Max Weber, but so we may not attempt this question, in the process losing around 10 marks. Why he said that bureaucrats have their own morality? Because simply, bureaucrats, how can they have their own morality? Because they are technically qualified. They have regular salary. Features of bureaucracy. You need not go through Max Weber also. Regular salary, assured promotion, technically qualified, regular, they are learned, they are neutral, value neutral. So these are the reasons why he said it is not wise that bureaucrats should be subjected to moral and ethical norms which are there for general public. This is the first part of the answer. You can add something more like they are given more facilities, they are given training in ethical code of conduct, etc., etc. You can write this. This answers the first part of the question. But then, and bureaucrats have their own morality. Then you critically analyze and go to the next part of the question. The next part of the question is, why this is what Max Weber thought, but why it is not in there in practice? Because we are seeing politicization of bureaucracy. bureaucrat is ultimately an human being. He is power aggrandizing. He wants to have more power for himself. Similarly, a bureaucrat is a budget maximizer. He wants the maximum budgets for himself. He focuses on outcome. He focuses on outlays, not outcomes. He is secretive. Hence, Max Weber's philosophy is actually wrong. He needs to be subjected to moral and ethical norms. So, you answered the critical analysis part. Here, if this is a 10-mark question, if you are writing this and this, the examiner would give you say around 4.5 to 5. How to get that extra 1 mark? Go for solution. Solution is what ARC tells. There needs to be code of conduct for bureaucrats as well as politicians. There needs to be more vigilance. There needs to be civil services board to prevent politicization of bureaucracy. You get say around 6 out of 10. I hope I am clear on this. Now I will go to case study approach. Case study, what I did different from last time and which actually got me marks. Case study this time last time my approach was like this. Suppose if there is a case study, what I used to do, I used to simply tell, because first of all we must remember that the examiner is asking us to write like an ethics student, not like a layman. What is the difference? You must approach the problem from an ethics point of view. You just cannot say that this is the problem, this is the solution, I run away with my marks, give me marks. You cannot ask that. So, if there is a question, last year what I used to do, I used to write what are the ethical dilemmas, problems involved, what are the ethical tests which the person or the case study is being subjected to, then solutions, innovative ones, final, end. This year, that's why I got around 94 marks. This year what I did was, I put ethical dilemmas, ethical tests, then I added 2 things. First is quotations by philosopher. It is very important. Quotations by famous philosophers, there are 10 or 15 regarding all aspects of ethics. You need to have, for example, anger, honesty, probity, integrity, compassion, other ethical qualities which can be measured as impartialness, greed, many. I remembered around say 50 to 60 quotations which I quoted in every answer. Another was, I quoted principles of ethical thinkers in my answers. For example, if there is a question on resettlement of human rights which had come in last year, resettlement, I quoted the principle of Aquinas which says, natural rights of men must override all other laws made by society. This is a very wonderful thing. So, if a tribal has a natural right, or it has been given a natural right on its surroundings or on its land, it has to override all other laws made by society. They have to be subservient to his natural right. Another example of this is, suppose if a child has a natural right on his mother, But if law tells that the child has to be separated from the mother, that cannot be. So you see many a times judiciary giving verdict that no, the child in case of a separation, unfortunate separation, the child must stay with its mother because it has a natural right on its mother. So it has to override all other laws made by society. Another question which came was about a case study, specific case study which came was about say a boss who is harassing his wife, something of that sort, and you being the junior, how do you approach it? Again, I put what are the qualities involved. It involves probity, it involves compassion. I cannot stand mute to such a thing. Then I put Aristotle's golden mean I have to follow here, which is not pushing the person or his wife to extreme by making their fight in the public or causing them embarrassment. It is also not keeping silent that it is my boss matter. Keeping silent is also not an option. And what are the innovative solutions? I told that I will make him go and see a movie where some similar harassment comes across, organize a public party where the boss and his wife come across, ask other people to indirectly talk to him. Finally, if all of these does not work and the boss still continues it, because I am an ethical public servant, I cannot keep mum, I will refer the commission matter to my higher authorities. So, आपको दो चीज ज्यादा करना पड़ेगा इस बार अगर कर सकते हो. First is try to inculcate quotations by philosophers. There you write like an ethics student. Second is principles आप follow कर लो. Aquinas, Aristotle, Buddha, Gandhi ji. आप इनका principles. What are the principles they have told? Socrates. The same. Subbarao mein hai, in lexicon also it is there. Mishra says ethics notes, if you go through you will also find it. There you will get these quotations. If you write these quotations as well as this ethical principles, they add a different charm to your answer and ultimately your answer looks better. So that is why I think I got around 22 marks this time. Till last year it was only about ethics, what are the ethical dilemmas, problem solutions. And flowchart etc. you need not draw, it's just a waste of time in case study. Try to be brief and try to focus on the word limit. It's very important here in ethical case studies. There is another question on, say, this is the last question I'll be discussing. On NGO as well as a measure of government control over voluntary social work is necessary, but it should not be exercised in a coercive way. This was a question regarding a personnel who had moved from USA. She wants to start an NGO, but ultimately what happens is she faces problems. What are the solutions? It was a 25 marks question. People focused on the last part of the question, but they forgot the fact that Saraswati is a person who has come from USA to start an NGO. Again, they did not write about the ethical dilemmas which she faces, ethical tests. They simply ignored Saraswati part of the question. They focused instead on the social aspect, on the NGO problems, IB report, voluntary social work, etc. They finished the answer and came out. But you are supposed to write something about Saraswati, why she should not leave her dreams behind, why she should still stick to becoming, championing the cause of the NGO that she does. So, answer, मतलब जो case study देता है, that background you have to always remember and then answer. Do not focus only on the question. See the background, what the background is asking. This is all for GS 1, 2, 3, 4. For essay, I'll just give a few brief hints. Again, essay I took at GS score. Essay last year, I think I scored around 134. This time it was 143. 7 marks, people have got up to 158. I got around say 9 marks increase. I could have got more, but first topic, common mistakes is people go for a lot of stereotypes. For example, there are 2 questions in paper 1 which I could have done much better. I could have at least added another 10 marks. One was on women, which is a controversial topic, of course, that women, if development is not engendered, it is endangered. Second was about water disputes. I could have, because from a PubAd background and I had lot of information, but this woman topic which I avoided was, people tell normally if an examiner is a male or a woman, you never know how much marks he is going to give you. This stereotype which I was facing. Second is water disputes I could not write because paper two, the second part of the essay I had helmet on my mind that I'll write about cooperative federalism. I thought that if one person writes about water disputes and cooperative federalism, obviously I'll get less marks. But my friend who is still in IRS, Debotosh, he had written on both and he had got 159 marks on water disputes and cooperative federalism. So my time and again advice to people is, do not go for stereotypes or prejudices. If you have enough content, multi-dimensional content, if you have, please go for it. Second is, include facts and figures, but which should be understandable to the common man. Do not write something very hi-fi. People make these mistakes. They write about very tough economic concepts, etc., which is not advisable. Try to do, if you are not getting from a comfort zone, try to do something which is very innovative. For example, there is a question on need greed. I could have done that, but instead I choose a safe topic like innovation is the major determinant of social welfare as well as economic growth. But when I started writing the essay, I could know that I am not getting the tune. I am not getting the feel kick which I got in say 2015. So go, if you are not finding a comfortable topic, go for a need greed type of philosophical topic. There obviously when it is too much subjective, you do not know what is the right answer, right approach. Even the examiner does not know the right answer, right approach. He will invariably give you better marks. Second is, try to make your essay interesting, make multi-dimensional approach, try to include different examples, try to include bit of a humor also. Most importantly, try to inculcate some philosophers of ethics itself. It is very important. Suppose Gandhiji, you can, if you quote Gandhiji, obviously it carries a much better impression, which even in my GS core essays I used to quote Gandhiji's talisman, Gandhiji's way of looking at society. Try to include ethical philosophers, and very simple way of writing an essay is just, if you are confused about what multidimensional aspect you must touch to, you must go for GS syllabus 1, 2, 3, 4. GS syllabus 1 is about history. Suppose if there is a question on poverty, history of poverty, geography of poverty, go for social aspects of poverty. Then go for 2. 2 is about what? 2 is about mechanisms to fight poverty. 2 is about say judiciary, judicial pronouncements on poverty, international relations, international aspects of poverty, Oxfam report, etc. Third is what? Economy. Economy is about employment, how to eradicate poverty, how poverty leads to internal security issues, how it leads to smuggling, trafficking, etc. How poverty is affected by disaster management. Finally, go for part 4, which is about an ethical aspect of poverty, poverty of culture, culture of poverty. This way you can have a very wonderful multidimensional essay without going for very specific things. Just relate it with your GS 1, 2, 3, 4. If you are relating and writing, you will get so much of quantity, fodder stuff or quantity, you just cannot finish in 1000 words also. So just brief aspects, history, geography, always start with a history. Any essay you start, go for a little bit of history, description, etc. Then you finish this. And go for topics which you have full confidence. Do not go into these prejudices that if I write this, examiner will have. If you have content and you are writing and expressing it well, you will definitely get marks. Attend a essay test series. Many people don't attend. Last time I had this mind that I had to get maximum marks across all the examinations. So I attended essay test series here. I used to get constantly, and essay if you get 120 to 120 plus, you must be very much sure that you are getting at least 20 marks or 30 marks more. But if you are in the 95-100 range in your test series, then you need to work upon as advised by the examiner, and I used to work upon it. For example, if there is a question like say suppose poverty relates to, I used to write like this, if there is a question, poverty leads to culture of poverty or culture of poverty leads to poverty, I used to focus only on one aspect. But it used to be in ratio 70:30. But then sir, when I checked, he told no, it is about 50:50. You are just focusing more on poverty of culture rather of culture of poverty. So I used to change that. So attend discussion classes. Any test series you are attending, this is my time and again advice to people. Do not miss on the discussion classes. They are very, very important. And do not, I mean, after every discussion classes or every test series, just see where don't see where your strength lies. Obviously that is going to stay with you till your exam. Just see where your weaknesses lies, where you did not answer the question, where you could have put in some more facts. Remember that, put it in the next exam. Another aspect I'd like to tell to people is, although our GS test series at GS score is structured in such a way that 2 weeks gap it is there, but I only used to give a test, which was also told by Roman Saini some time back, that if you are giving a test, you must be fully prepared for it. आकर बैठकर लिखकर कुछ चले जाना टेस्ट सीरीज का कुछ फायदा नहीं है, ना आपको फायदा है, ना इंस्टीट्यूट को फायदा है, ना आपको मार्क बढ़ेंगे. मैं क्या करता था, अगर GS1, I think GS1, 2, 3 I used to give with almost 2.5 weeks gap क्योंकि मैं कोर्स खत्म नहीं कर पाता था. GS4 I kept it for the last, I gave 2 tests in the matter of one week. This very good facility is given by GS score. मतलब GS4 के last 2 tests I wrote at the last because तब मेरा मतलब इसके ऊपर confidence आ गया था. GS4 I was confident क्योंकि मुझे ये quotations वगैरह याद रखने थे. And these quotations actually helped me in my essay also. Essay also I could write a lot of quotations. So only attempt the test आप fully prepared हो. If you are 70% prepared, 80% prepared, 85% prepared, also it does not matter. You must be 100% prepared as if it is your UPSC exam. तब आप देखना आपके मार्क्स अच्छे आएंगे, आपका प्रिपरेशन अच्छा रहेगा, आप कोर्स रिवीजन भी टाइम पे कर पाएंगे. फाइनली इज आपका फाइनल स्कोर 20 मार्क्स मोर रहेगा आपका जो भी टेस्ट सीरीज है. दैट्स इट फॉर GS essay. क्या और एक बार बताइए. नहीं, चारों GS का +2 होने से ज्यादा फायदा नहीं है. ऑलमोस्ट एवरी एग्जाम में आपका +20 आएगा, लेकिन आप 100% प्रिपेयर्ड होके जाइए. ऐसा नहीं कि एग्जाम में बैठना है, सिर्फ एग्जाम में बैठना है, यूपीएससी के तरह ही लिखना है. बहुत लोग क्या करते हैं, ऐसे ही थोड़ा थोड़ा करके आते हैं कि 70% कर दिए, वो जो पोर्शन ना वो रह जाता है और यूपीएससी के टाइम तक भी और आप मेकअप नहीं कर पाते हो. Why you can't have? That's why I told na, the test series is scheduled at 2 weeks interval. Okay, approximately 2 weeks. हाँ, तो एक काम कीजिए ना, आप 1-2 को ले लीजिए. 1-2 का अच्छी तरह से प्रिपेयर करके आइए. एक दिन या 2 दिन में दोनों एग्जाम दीजिए. मतलब जो पेपर 2 के लिए गैप है आपका, उसको यूटिलाइज कीजिए 1 और 2 मिलाकर पढ़ने के लिए. फिर 2 दिन में 2 एग्जाम दे दीजिए. ऐसा कि नहीं कि एक वीक गैप में आप दोगे. लेकिन वही मैं बोल रहा हूँ, 100% प्रिपेयर होके 3 वीक भी लीजिए आप, लेकिन 100% प्रिपेयर होके आइए. क्योंकि आप जो चीज छोड़ दोगे उस टाइम पर, याद रखना वो आप कभी और कवर नहीं कर पाओगे. जो 70% प्रिपरेशन में आप जो चीज छोड़कर आकर एग्जाम दे दोगे ना, उसको आप और कभी प्रिपेयर नहीं कर पाओगे.
सर आई प्रॉब्लम इन कंप्लीशन ऑफ पेपर. कंप्लीट नहीं होता सर.
कंप्लीशन
मतलब पेपर कंप्लीट नहीं होता सर.
क्यों कंप्लीट नहीं होता है, मुझे वो बताइए.
मतलब कुछ पॉइंट्स में
देखिए, मैंने यहीं पर अभी लिखा था टाइम और वर्ड लिमिट का जो केस है. बताइए कहाँ कंप्लीट नहीं होता है.
सर प्रोज और कॉन्स अगर लिखने हैं और उसका क्रिटिसिज्म लिखना है, तो प्रोज में कितने पॉइंट्स लिखने हैं, कॉन्स में कितने, कुछ में ज्यादा.
इसीलिए मैं बोलता हूँ हर वक्त टाइम पर फोकस कीजिए. आप कभी, आई थिंक दिस प्रॉब्लम आई हैड इन 2015, जो कि मैंने 2016 में रेक्टिफाई किया था. आप 9 मिनट से ज्यादा कोई आंसर को मत लीजिए. यू आर जस्ट किलिंग योर ओन चांसेस. आप 9 मिनट करके जाएंगे भी, टॉप 5 या 6 क्वेश्चंस के बाद आप देखिएगा आपका 1-1.5 मिनट ज्यादा ही हो जाएगा. लास्ट क्वेश्चन लिखते लिखते 9 मिनट आप टारगेट करके भी चलिए, लास्ट क्वेश्चन तक 6 मिनट आ जाएगा. सो ओनली फोकस ऑन द टाइम लिमिट. एंड मीटिंग द मेरिट्स ऑफ द क्वेश्चन। अभी यूपीएससी लंबा लंबा क्वेश्चन दे रहा है, 5 सेंटेंसेस 3 सेंटेंसेस क्वेश्चन क्या पूछा गया है, जैसे मैंने कहा कि छोटा छोटा ब्रेकिंग कर दीजिए सब हेडिंग में, स्मार्ट सिटी, स्मार्ट विलेजेस, स्मार्ट पूरा क्या है, रूरल अर्बन क्या है, स्मार्ट विलेजेस कैसे पूरा रूरल अर्बन से कनेक्टेड है, 9 मिनट में ही लिखना है हमको। डू नॉट फोकस ऑन कंप्लीटिंग द पेपर तो कंप्लीट ऐसे भी नहीं होगा वैसे भी नहीं होगा, लेकिन 9 मिनट में अगर आप आंसर लिखते हो एंड यू आर एटलीस्ट कीपिंग 8 मिनट्स फॉर द लास्ट आंसर, तो आप जस्टिस कर रहे हो। और यहाँ पर ऐसा नहीं कि 10 आंसर यू राइट वेरी गुड एक्सीलेंट, लास्ट 10 को आप पुअर लिख दोगे। ये लोग जनरली ऐसा एक स्ट्रेटेजी बना के जाते हैं, दिस इज वेरी एरनियस। 20 के 20 क्वेश्चन को हमको इक्वल रेस्पेक्ट और इक्वल हमको देना है एफर्ट, तभी हम सक्सेसफुल हो पाएंगे। प्लीज डू नॉट गो फॉर दिस आइडिया कि मैं 8 एक्सीलेंट, पीपल लोगों का एक स्कोर होता है 8 एक्सीलेंट, 5 वेरी गुड, 6 ओके, 1 पुअर। ये क्या लॉजिक लेके जाता है, आई डोंट गेट दिस। 20 क्वेश्चंस इक्वल एफर्ट, 20 क्वेश्चन से मार्क लाने हैं, एटलीस्ट 5, 5.5 ईच से 100 प्लस हो जाएगा, हम लोग सेफ हो जाएंगे।